2025 in the UFC has officially ended. The ESPN era is over, with us being on this 42-day, 6-week break before we start the UFC and Paramount Plus deal. We got to get creative with the content, guys, and that's exactly what we are going to do. In this video, we are going to be ranking every single UFC title fight that took place in 2025. We have men's fights, women's fights, and the BMF belt that were contested this year, and we are going to be ranking them from worst to best. So stick around to hear just how I rank every 2025 UFC title fight. My name is Wyatt. Welcome to Fight Society. What's going on, guys? Before we get into the video, do me a huge favor, like and subscribe down below. And if you're watching this video on your phone, go ahead and swipe left on the comment section and hit that hype button down below. It's a new YouTube feature that allows you to help push me, a small creator, even further in the algorithm than liking and subscribing. So please do that for me down below. Let's get into the video. If you look to the right of me, you'll see that we have every single UFC title fight that was contested this year. Now, it does say 21. There was actually 22. I decided to add the BMF title fight right here. But we are going to start from worst and work our way all the way up to best in terms of title fights. Now, I think the worst title fight of the year is fairly obvious. Tom Aspinall and Ciryl Gane, strictly because of the result that did not pan out in a good way at all. Actually, we didn't get a result at all. We got a no contest and basically nothing happening with the UFC heavyweight title in 2025. It was a good fight while it lasted, but that doesn't move it up my list at all, strictly because we got no result, and all this controversy has started because of the eye poke. So to me, Aspinall versus Gane is the worst title fight that took place this year. That would be number 22 out of 22. We then move on to what I consider the second worst title fight, but the worst title fight that went the distance this year. Very boring. A fight that took place at UFC 319. Boring. No advancement in position from Hamzat. The second worst title fight of 2025 in my eyes. Dricus du Plessis when he lost the belt to Hamzat Chimaev. Very frustrating fight to watch because Chimaev was dominant in the grappling, but he did not try to advance position. He was content with laying with a body lock across du Plessis' back across the cage, maintaining top position while doing no damage, and throwing knees to the thigh up against the fence. So I was not a fan of that fight at all. It was definitely the worst fight of the year that we got an actual outcome from. And up from there, you guys are going to be able to tell that I hate these boring wrestling heavy decisions that take place, because number 20 in 2025 for me, Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev, the main event of UFC 322 in Madison Square Garden. It was a very good performance from Islam, a very dominant performance. But let's be real, this was not a good fight by any stretch of the imagination. Islam dominated with the grappling. He at least made attempts to finish the fight. He tried to lock up Jack Della Maddalena in that Darce choke a few times. He tried to get him with a straight arm lock a couple times as well. So just the at least semi-attempts at finishing the fight is why I put it above du Plessis versus Chimaev. But there are my three worst title fights of 2025. Now, coming in at number 19, I have to do Alexandre Pantoja versus Josh Van, because we got 26 seconds of a fight. It was a fun 26 seconds, but still, it was a 26-second fight where we saw the belt changing hands via a freak injury. Josh Van didn't do anything wrong, and it's crazy that we're living on a timeline where Josh Van is getting more hate than Ciryl Gane for poking Tom Aspinall in the eye. But it is what it is. This is the UFC fan base that we have to deal with right now. And due to the fact that we saw a belt change hands with an injury, I really can't put it much higher. We did have fights that were more boring, but we did have fights that were a lot more decisive and fulfilling to the soul. You know what I mean? Where you watch it and you're like, fuck. I mean, it sucks, but at least we saw something of a fight. Josh Van and Alexandre Pantoja was shaping up to be an all-time classic at flyweight for the title. I'm disappointed. And Pantoja's going to be out for a long time. They're likely going to do Tatsuro Taira against Josh Van in the meantime, because Pantoja's most likely going to need surgery on his elbow. And even if he doesn't, it's going to be a long time before he gets back to the cage. And that's why Pantoja versus Van is my number 19, the fourth worst title fight of 2025. We move on to a fight that was very, very anticlimactic and saw fan favorite and superstar Alex Pereira losing the belt to Magomed Ankalaev. Alex Pereira came in with norovirus, which I think is just a form of the flu, and apparently a broken hand. He had almost no output. I think he landed like 20 significant strikes in the entire fight, was not able to let his left hand go. Frankly, a very, very bad fight, and probably the worst that we've ever seen Alex Pereira, even compared to the fight where he got knocked out by Adesanya. So for me, very, very low on the list. Pereira versus Ankalaev 2, which was at UFC 313 back in March in Las Vegas. Now, just above that, I am going to put Shevchenko versus Weili Zhang at UFC 322. I honestly could put it right here next to Makhachev and Della Maddalena because it was a very similar fight. But at the end of the day, Weili Zhang came out with no game plan whatsoever. Literally no game plan. She was trying to land 1-2s from distance and kind of trudge her way in, and she got picked apart from distance, if we're being real. A very poor showing from Weili Zhang. She got exposed as being way, way too small for the weight class, which I called ahead of time. I thought it was going to be a dominant decision for Shevchenko based on the size, considering that Zhang was moving up from 115 and Shevchenko used to be a 135er at one point. Shevchenko, I don't really rate her performance much at all. Same thing as the Makhachev Della Maddalena fight. I mean, sure, it's fine. I mean, it was an okay title fight. I mean, it was a title fight that was conclusive. Like, we definitely know who the better fighter was that night. But Shevchenko has gotten way too complacent in her finishing ability. I mean, her KO of Jessica Ai and some of the other killer instinct that we saw early on in her career has kind of vanished, if you ask me. There really isn't much when it comes to finishing ability for Shevchenko at this day and age, in this point in her career. And then just above that, coming in at number 15 for UFC title fights this year, I'm going to put the co-main event to UFC 315, Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. It was an okay fight. Maybe I'm biased against Shevchenko because she just coasts in fights. But frankly, 48-47 decision, that was kind of a toss-up, mostly a striking battle, just not exciting. Maybe it's Shevchenko not trying as hard. Maybe it's the fact that it's a women's fight. I hate to say it, but it just wasn't compelling to me. Fiorot doesn't get me excited. Shevchenko doesn't get me excited anymore at all. So that is why I have that coming in at number 15. Just above that, we have Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez, UFC 312. It was the co-main event to DDP and Sean Strickland in Australia in February. It wasn't necessarily the worst fight I've ever seen, but Suarez just came in so incredibly unprepared, so unready to do anything but fail takedowns. I mean, she got boxed up on the feet. She couldn't land a single takedown. And once that happened, where she couldn't get the takedown, she was fucked. Let's be real. She was totally fucked. It was kind of like Merab against Peter Yan. She was absolutely cooked once she couldn't get the fight to the ground. Let's be real. And I really don't have much else to say about it. This fight really just showed Weili's dominance at 115, but same thing. She doesn't necessarily go for finishes as much as she should. Quick break. If you're loving this video and you want more from Fight Society, click that join button down below to become a channel member today, where you'll get access to members only live streams, behind the scenes vlogs, and all the unfiltered stuff that we don't post to the main channel. Back to the video. Now we will move on from there to Kayla Harrison's title winning performance against Juliana Pena. It was a very dominant performance. I think I'm biased against Juliana Pena at this point because she's just not all that exciting. Let's be real. She's just not that exciting. And Kayla, going into that fight, I knew she was going to dominate. She used to compete at 170 pounds. She has, not trying to say anything about her, but I'm just saying objectively, from a athletic strength, physicality standpoint, she's a man compared to Kayla Harrison. or compared to Juliana Pena. So it was a very dominant, one-sided performance where Kayla Harrison won the belt. I'm sure the Nunes fight is going to be a lot more competitive. And that's why I'm excited to see Nunes come back, because I am not excited to see Kayla Harrison continue to fight like these just rollover type of fights. Like if she fights a Raquel Pennington or Mayra Bueno Silva, you know, the women that were fighting for the belt not too long ago, it just doesn't make sense to have her fight anybody but Amanda Nunes. Maybe they bring Larissa Pacheco over from PFL because she did just get released and she beat Kayla Harrison in the PFL. So there we have a couple of potential matchups. They might even do a Nunes and Harrison rematch if it's a good fight. That shows you how dead this division really is. So we move on from there to a fight that should not have taken place, but you guys can thank Arman Sarukian for that. Moicano versus Makhachev happened on 24 hours notice, something like that. And Makhachev put on a good performance. The performance that I would have wanted to see from him at UFC 322 to continue working on his legacy and building towards GOAT status. But this fight was against number 9 or 11 ranked, I can't really remember off the top of my head, Moicano, on 24 hours notice, and he did exactly what he should. He got a first round finish with a Bravo choke. Modified Darce, basically. Makhachev versus Moicano. I can't really even hate on Islam. The hate is more towards Arman for fucking ruining that fight, in my opinion. So my number 12 fight of the year for the belt in 2025 in the UFC, Makhachev versus Moicano. If you take a look at where we're at so far, it's not like, if you look at any of these, none of these were very entertaining. Aspinall Gone was fun, but we didn't get a result. Duplessis Chimaev, terrible. Makhachev Della Maddalena, terrible. Pantoja versus Van would have been a classic, but injury. Pereira Ankalaev, 1, terrible. Shevchenko Zhang, terrible. Shevchenko Fior, mid. Weili Suarez, mid. Pena Harrison, mid, mostly just because it was so one-sided. And Makhachev Moicano also mid, even though it was a first round finish from Islam. No hate to Islam on that. It's just the circumstances that really made that an iffy fight. We move on from there to a fight that was truly a dog shit performance from Sean Strickland that made me happy to see him lose the belt, because he won the belt in such amazing fashion against Adesanya. And then the fight where he lost the belt against DDP was a fucking war that could have gone either way. Their first fight, I had it 3-2 for DDP, but I understand if it would have went to Strickland, it was a fucking really, 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 really close fight, and I wouldn't have been mad with it going either way. But this fight, especially following up the very iffy and boring Paulo Costa performance from Strickland at UFC 301, this one right here is just a fucking stinker, man. Sean Strickland just showed up and didn't try. He did not have literally anything for DDP that fight. DDP did whatever he wanted. The only thing to write home about for Strickland in that fight is that he didn't get finished, basically. So there we have my number 11 title fight in the UFC in 2025 was the main event of UFC 312, Duplessis versus Strickland 2. We are down to our final 10 title fights for the UFC in 2025. My number 10 is Mackenzie Dern becoming champion at UFC 321. Very, very high on the list for a women's fight. Jandy Roba and Dern did put on a very fun fight where we had striking, jiu-jitsu, both of them. They frankly beat the shit out of each other. It was a really, really nice fight. And Mackenzie Dern, super marketable fighter that is now champ. Good for her. Weili's coming back to 125 or 115, my apologies. Weili's coming back to 115, and she's going to lose the belt immediately because that was a fun fight. But the only thing that I could think of while watching that fight was, wow, neither of these girls have shit for Weili Zhang. Now, Mackenzie Dern might get like a Gillian Robertson title fight or somebody that's not Weili Zhang if Weili Zhang wants to take some time off, because Weili is not very active, if we're being real. So I have that one at number 10. It was a really good fight, but it was a consolation prize of sorts because Weili vacated and moved up, and neither of these women are good enough to beat Weili Zhang, in my opinion. We move on to number 9, and for me, just for me, that is Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. At UFC 317, Kai Kara France was absolutely dominated and submitted in this fight. I thought, given his kickboxing skills, training out of City Kickboxing and all that, that he was going to be able to put up some sort of a fight on the feet. And he just got fucking dominated. It was an okay fight. And most of my ranking here has to do with Pantoja being so fucking dominant. I mean, he was such a buzzsaw. People forget, man, prime Pantoja before the elbow injury, man. Pantoja put on an incredible performance that night. And I wish that it would have been a better fight, at least on the feet, because I knew Pantoja would dominate on the ground. It's more of Pantoja having a good performance that puts it this high on my list. It was fun to watch. It was one-sided, but it was fun to watch. We move on from there to a very, very fun fight that did not last very long. Merab versus Sean O'Malley rematch at UFC 316. It was the main event, while Pena Harrison was the co-main. Merab versus Sean O'Malley 2. It was only a round and a half, but it was Merab putting a stamp on the undeserved title shot for Sean O'Malley. I thought Sean O'Malley was going to be able to bounce back, get a KO, maybe land that body shot that Peter Yan landed so well. But Merab, people forget, man, Merab before the second Peter Yan fight. Merab dominated this fight and showed us that he has finishing potential. He does. We didn't see that in the Peter Yan fight. We saw a very different version in the Peter Yan fight. But O'Malley versus Yan, O'Malley versus Merab 2, putting a stamp on the title reign to that point. I know it fell apart 2 fights later for Merab against Peter Yan, but he very well could win the trilogy with Peter Yan and get the belt back. But this was a fun fight for as long as it lasted. We move on to the number 7 title fight of the year. For me, that is UFC 315, where Jack Della Maddalena became champion and, in my opinion, dominated Belal Muhammad. I know a lot of people online were calling it a 48-47, how he eked it out. Belal was saying he won the fight. But if you ask me, Jack Della Maddalena put on a masterclass in that fight, defending the takedowns, wrestling back on Belal, and piecing him up on the feet. Of course, the title reign was short because he lost to Makhachev later in the year at UFC 322. That one's all the way down here at number 20 on the year for title fights. But when he won the belt, it was very, very, very fun. And I was also just hate watching to see Belal lose because I really don't like Belal. I don't mind him as much now, but at the time I was very anti-Belal. We move on from there, the BMF title fight that was contested in Dustin Poirier's retirement fight at UFC 318 for the BMF belt. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier put on an absolute war in Dustin's retirement fight. Amazing fight. The only reason that I knock it down, I can't put a BMF title fight in my top 5 because it's not a real title. And we had seen them fight 3 times already, and Poirier won both of them. So good for Max to get that back and really assert himself in the top 5 at lightweight with his wins over Gaethje at UFC 300 to get the BMF belt. And then, of course, this right here. And now he's going to be defending the BMF belt again against Charles Oliveira at UFC 326, which I'm sure is going to be a banger fight. So that makes my number 6 title fight of 2025, UFC 318's main event, Holloway versus Poirier 3. I actually made a mistake there. That would make this number 7. Yeah, that actually makes this number 7. And that makes my number 6, not number 7. Sorry, I miscounted how many title fights there were this year. But my number 6 title fight of the year, Merab versus Corey Sandhagen. A very, very fun fight. A very fun fight. But it was very one-sided. Basically, the only thing to write home about is that Sandhagen made it all the way to the end. And Merab almost got a KO. He almost KO'd Corey Sandhagen in the 3rd round, I think it was, where he unloaded a flurry of punches, landed a big right hand that dropped Corey, and Corey survived. But number 6 of 2025, Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen. That one might be a little bit controversial for some of you guys, but I think that's a good spot. Maybe you could switch Holloway and Poirier 3. That actually is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that at number 7. And I'm going to put Holloway Poirier 3 at number 6 because it was a very fun fight. And it was a better fight than Merab versus Sandhagen. It's just tough with the BMF not really being a real title. We move on to my number 5 title fight of 2025, and that is the UFC 317 main event. Charles Oliveira getting knocked out in the first round by Ilia Topuria. Amazing fight for as long as it lasted. I would have put it higher if it made it into like maybe the third or fourth round and then had the same ending. But when a fight only goes for 2 minutes or so, it's hard to say it was an amazing fight compared to some of these other fights that went 5 rounds. And that is why I have Oliveira versus Topuria, Topuria becoming double champ and knocking out a legend, adding to his KO streak of legends because he went Volk, Holloway, Oliveira. I mean, that's a crazy run. It's really unfortunate that we only got to see Topuria once this year, despite taking 0 damage. It's really a waste of his career to this point. I feel for him. He's going through the divorce and all of that stuff, but this right here, amazing fight as long as it lasted. And a very similar fight because it ended very quickly, but it was very fun. My number 4 fight of 2025 is Alex Pereira getting the belt back against Magomed Ankalaev. Finished him in 1 minute and 20 seconds. It was a real, like, y'all must have forgot moment. Really, it was that type of moment where Pereira shows us that he is that guy and that he is the best 205er, and he could be the best heavyweight depending on the matchup. Pereira versus Ankalaev, very fun fight from my favorite fighter, getting a highlight reel finish in the first round over Ankalaev, sending back that dirty Dagestani rah. And that's my number 4 fight. Moving on from there to my number 3 title fight of 2025, a very competitive but still very clearly Volkanovski winning the main event of UFC 314, Volkanovski versus Lopes. Or Lopez. You guys always get on me in the comments for that. But Volkanovski versus Lopez, they're now rematching in February. That should be a really, really fun fight. The second card of the Paramount Plus deal. And Volk taking all that time off to come back and get the belt back. It's an amazing story. I freaking love Volk. He's one of my favorite fighters. So I'm very, very happy, or I was very happy to see him get the belt back in that fight. Diego Lopez put up a really good fight, but you could just tell the championship experience for Volk made all the difference in the world. Moving on from there, the number 2 title fight of the year, Umar versus Merab. Very fun fight, very close. Merab maybe would have lost if Umar wouldn't have broken his hand. But, I mean, look, Umar put up a very competitive fight, but it was still Merab's time. Merab was dancing on him, you know, doing all of this to the crowd. The crowd was oohing and awing. He was running the pike. He was slamming him with a high single and not even going to the ground. He just did it for the vibes. He's like, look, let me throw you down on your ass and then point at you in front of everybody. Very, very fun fight. I know Khabib and Islam thought that he won the fight, thought that Umar won the fight, but Merab very clearly won. And then we move on to our number 1 title fight. It might be a little bit of recency bias and also me being kind of happy to see the fall off of the Merab title reign because I am a little bit of a Merab hater, to be honest. We have Dvalishvili versus Peter Yan 2, the most recent pay-per-view to close out the pay-per-view era. For so many reasons, this is my number 1 title fight of the year. One, it was a rematch of a dominant first fight that was a complete 180. You went from essentially 50-44 Merab to like 50-45 or 49-46 Yan. Just a total flip. And that showed just how much Yan learned and how much he grew in between those fights, defending the takedowns, exposing Merab's striking, and overall just the competitiveness of the fight, the excitingness of the fight, the build up to it, the stakes, basically turning back Merab's championship defenses record for the year. He would have had the record for 4 title defenses in 1 year. He turns that away and wins the belt. And now we have a very interesting layout for the bantamweight division going into 2026. Could it be O'Malley getting a title shot with a win over Yadong? Could it be Merab getting a trilogy? There's so many things that could happen here with this belt, but it was such a masterclass from Yan. And I was so excited to see Merab lose the belt, to be honest. So there we have my number 1 title fight of 2025. And a quick rundown of all of the title fights ranked in order for 2025. Number 1, Merab versus Peter Yan 2. Number 2, Merab versus Umar at UFC 311. Number 3, Volkanovski versus Lopez at 314. Number 4, Ankalaev versus Pereira at UFC 320, where Pereira gets the belt back via first round TKO. Number 5, Oliveira versus Topuria. Number 6, BMF title fight, Holloway Poirier 3. Number 7, Merab versus Corey Sandhagen. Number 8, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. Number 9, O'Malley versus Merab 2. Number 10, Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. Number 11, Jandy Roba versus Dern for the vacant strawweight belt. Number 12, Strickland versus DDP 2. Number 13, Makhachev versus Moicano to kick off the year. Number 14, Pena versus Harrison, absolute domination. Number 15, Weili versus Tatiana Suarez at UFC 312. Number 16, Shevchenko versus Fior at UFC 315. Number 17, Shevchenko versus Zhang, co-main event to Islam and JDM at UFC 322. Number 18, Pereira versus Ankalaev, 1 very boring fight. Number 19, Pantoja versus Van, injury stoppage. Number 20, JDM versus Makhachev, very one-sided, boring fight. Number 21, DDP versus Chimaev. Chimaev putting on a despicable performance to win the belt. And then, of course, the worst title fight of the year that ended in an eye-poke no contest. Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, the main event of UFC 321. Let me know what you guys thought of my rankings for the title fights in 2025. This is the best right here. This is the official rankings, guys. Even for the UFC, when they put out their rankings for title fights, it's going to say, yeah, we consulted Wyatt for Fight Society, and this is what the big dog had to say. This is what Big Rex, Big Y had to say. So let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what your favorite title fights of the year were. Like, subscribe, join channel members down below as well. Thank you very much. We will survive this break. I'll see you next time. Do you want more from Fight Society? Like and subscribe below this video and click the join button to become a channel member today to get access to behind the scenes vlogs and members only live streams.